car racing. And I had a good time in Europe while we did it, and traveled and met a lot of people and had a wonderful time. We'd plan our winter family vacations around skiing. We'd go down to either southern Germany or in Austria or into France. Some of the most memorable things I can remember was skiing in La Plange, France. We'd rented a house for the week. Of course, it's just a little cottage-type farmhouse, or not even farmhouse, just a condo almost, small condo. And it was heated and you had water, and for breakfast, if you wanted eggs, you'd have to either walk, and the snow was pretty deep, so I would take and ski down to the grocery store, buy the eggs and the milk and the bread, fresh bread. Of course, in France, it's only fresh bread. And then I'd wrap them around my wrist and go up the lift, ski down to the house. And literally, you could ski right to the front door. And so we'd do that. It was a great time. Spent 4 years in the Netherlands. We converted the squadron from F-102s to the first F-4E squadron. Spent about 6 months doing that. In the conversion process, the Air Force went through a time period there where the war in Southeast Asia was, to quote somebody, winding down. So the Air Force had a surplus of fighter pilots. So when my assignment came down from the Netherlands, I was assigned to B-52s. Now to a fighter pilot, that was a crushing, devastating blow. I was brokenhearted. It was the experience that said the needs of the service comes before your needs, young hero. So I said, okay. So I had attempted everything I could. I tried to get out of the Air Force, and of course I couldn't. They wouldn't let me resign. I tried to send a letter to the Israelis saying, hey, I'll come and fly for you. So we moved from Holland in July of 1970. I was brokenhearted on my way to Castle Air Force Base in California to fly to B-52 training. And I was just, my wife will tell you, I was hard to live with. My whole world had crumbled. My ego was smashed. It was the end of the world to me. One of the programs that Strategic Air Command had at the time was they would bring in to Castle the wing commanders and their deputy commanders for operations. They'd bring them down there for an orientation, welcoming to the new wings. So I can remember the night that Pat and I were driving out to meet the wing commander, because I hadn't met him before. And driving out there, my wife is lecturing me, saying, now remember, be nice, don't say something dumb, don't do anything stupid. And so I'm saying, okay, I just won't say anything. I will not say a word. So we're out there and we're going through the receiving line at the Officers Club this night. And I'm proceeding and I'm being introduced, and I meet the squadron commander, and he knows I'm unhappy because I talked to him on the phone previously. And so then I meet this big tall guy with brown eyes. And he looks at me and he says, so you're my fighter pilot? And right there, the dam broke, and I said, yes, sir, and I don't want to fly B-52s, and I don't want to be in SAC, and I want out of here. He says, quote, young hero, if at the end of 1 year you are not circumcised, I will do everything in my power to get you wherever you want to go, unquote. I said, yes, sir, and we got a deal. 1 year later, I was back in F-4s. And I'm sure that he kept his part of the bargain, and I did my thing and said I want to go back to F-4s. So my tour in SAC was very short as a B-52 aircraft commander. Well, after that tour in SAC, the assignment out of there was back to Vietnam and went to Ubon, Thailand, flying F-4s. And of course, in 1972, the war was heating up again. Got assigned to the 433rd Squadron, which was one of the 2 or 3 that were using the early versions of a laser-guided ordnance. So it was a great learning experience. And then we came back, and after that, the war slowed down and the negotiations started again in 1973. And the last 3 or 4 months I was in Thailand, it was kind of slow. By that time, of course, I'd been promoted then to major. Then the assignments came down out of Thailand, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be an experience. And my assignment was to be at New Ulm down by Stuttgart, Germany. Lo and behold, about 3 weeks before I was to depart Thailand, my orders got changed. You're reassigned to F4s in England. And so that's how I ended up in F4s in England. About end of 3 years there, you're supposed to get a set of orders to go somewhere else. Never got any orders, never got any orders. And I remember Kenny Sublett walking out of the training department of the wing, says, hey, did you put your name in to go to Germany to fly F-15s? And I says, they don't want an old major like me, you know, they're looking for young guys. He says, why don't you let me put your name in? And I said, well, go ahead, Ken, you know, we were pretty good friends. And I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Because I didn't think I had a prayer in hell of getting an assignment like that. Because I was just one of the good old boys. And so we're having a big operational readiness inspection, and the wing commander had been gone for 2 days. We're in the middle of this inspection, and at this time I'm working now as one of the directors in the command post. And there's 2 who work 12-hour shifts. You basically run the war with the advice of the wing commander and people behind you, but you've got a whole staff to support you. And so I'm sitting there, and we're going along in the middle of the night and getting ready for the big build-up tomorrow morning, which is the last day. And he says, Bates, keep your act together and you may have a job. And I'm watching 1,000 things going on, and it just kind of passed by me. Just never dawned on me what was coming on. And so, you know, then I went home that night and went to bed. The next day the make-believe war got over, and I got to talking to people, and come to find out he had been to a staff meeting at headquarters U.S. Air Forces Europe to pick the crew members to go fly the first F-15 wing at Bitburg, Germany. And he'd been on that selection staff. And I was fortunate enough to be selected to go one of the early F-15 pilots at Bitburg, Germany. It was more likely the finest group of aviators, because each one of them was hand-picked. Each one of them was a very selective and very skilled aviator, very skilled officer. And unfortunately, those only occur once in a lifetime. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. Plus, the airplane was absolutely state-of-the-art. Absolutely state-of-the-art. To this day, it's the best airplane I've ever flown. I spent 3 years there, and then I was reassigned back to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. And that was the schoolhouse for F-15 pilots worldwide. Fortunate enough there to command a squadron of F-15s, highlight my career. Unfortunately, I got promoted out of the best job there is and went on to become a full colonel and chief of maintenance, and retired from the Air Force after 24 years, of which we enjoyed every minute of it.
It's important that the wife of an officer support him, and so therefore I didn't work. I took all of my responsibilities with the military very serious, as well as raising the kids. I was very active in the wives' clubs wherever we went. I was very concerned about the young people coming into the military, and wanted to make sure that the young wives had a good experience. So I made efforts to visit them, to take meals into them when they were ill and had babies, and had meetings, and didn't expect. In those days, there were kind of the white glove days where you were expected to go to a lot of things, but I made it very easy for the women that I worked with, so that they came if they wanted to, and because I was that way, they did want to come to the meetings, and ended up in my 50s going back and finishing college, and got my master's degree in human development with the emphasis on early childhood education. And I worked for 20 years in a school district.
So now I've retired the first time and decided to come back to Arizona, the house we'd bought when we were first assigned there, and said, well, we're just going to travel. Well, in the meantime, my daughter Barbie had graduated from college and went to work for an airline, a startup airline there in Phoenix called America West. And so she said, Dad, why don't you put in an application? I said, they don't hire old farts like me. Well, they're 48 years old. I said, you know, they don't want anybody my age. So I said, I'll put it in. So again, just like Kenny Sublett, I put in an application. So they hired me. And at that time, the airline was expanding very rapidly. 4 months later, I was a captain with the airline. So I spent the next 12 years as an airline captain, flying 737s and 757s for America West Airlines. Then the magic age 60 hit, and I have mandatory retirement. So one day before I'm age 60, I retire. Great time period. So then I retired from my second job. So then I said, well, now maybe I'll just go travel around. Didn't work. So now I'm building buildings and building houses and remodeling houses, and have become a real estate baron, I guess.